What is up, everybody? It is Rust Belt Perspective. Today is Saturday, June 1st, 2024, and today it's a new month. We're getting closer and closer to election season, and we're going to be taking a look at the 2024 Senate races as of now. So, like I and many others have kept saying repeatedly throughout these last year or so, this Senate map is quite unfavorable for the Democrats as they have, I believe, 23 seats to defend, while the Republicans only have 11 seats to defend. And many of these seats Republicans are defending that I have highlighted are already safe for them, while the Democrats have a lot of competitive seats to defend. So right off the bat, you see with the safe seats for the Republicans, they are at 47 seats. And the Democrats, of course, though, they have their share of safe states as well out in the West with their blue wall and through much of the New England territory, and where they typically do well anyways. And then additionally, Virginia, Minnesota, and New Mexico, three states that are somewhat competitive federally, but typically Democratic leaning, have strong Democratic incumbents with weak Republican challengers, so I will consider Virginia, Minnesota, and New Mexico all to be safe Democratic states as well. Not really competitive. I think they go by over 15 points for the Democrats, and especially compared to some of these other races we're about to dive into, this race is not a competitive one. And then, right off the bat, I'll go ahead and call Florida a likely Republican state. Rick Scott there, he very narrowly won against then popular Democratic incumbent Bill Nelson back in 2018. You saw it was literally hardly 1/10 of a percentage point. It was very close. I'm not even sure it was called election night. It took a while to count. But anyway, there's not really much doubt he'll win here, just not quite by 15. He has been polling like 8 to 10 points above his challenger. But again, the Democrats are disorganized in Florida, and with the way Trump and even DeSantis and Rubio have been doing well in the state, there's very little doubt that Rick Scott will win soundly. And also, a lean state is Texas. I do believe Ted Cruz holds on against Colin Allred, but Colin Allred absolutely poses a threat to Ted Cruz. If you take a look at the polls here, yes, Cruz is consistently winning, but not one time does Cruz win by 15, which is threshold for a safe state. And I mean, you look back to 2018, Cruz won by just 2.6 against Beto O'Rourke, a very popular Democratic candidate back then. And yes, 2018 was a blue wave year, which definitely contributed to this race tightening up. And like I said, O'Rourke was a popular candidate as well. But Cruz still held on, and I think he will still hold on again in 2024 because, yes, the state has been tightening up federally, but I mean, even in 2020, Donald Trump won the state by over 5 points, despite how much the national mood was bad against him. And even on the governor level in 2022, you saw Greg Abbott win by 11 points over Beto himself. So overall, I do believe that Texas goes back to the Republicans, possibly even by more than 5, but worst case, it's a lean state for the Republicans. So right away, the Republicans have retained everything that they have already. Oh, and I almost forgot about another safe state that's a flip for them, and that is West Virginia. Of course, the state is super deeply red federally, has been for quite a while, but the popular Democrat Joe Manchin kept this seat for the Democrats, but with him out of the picture, there's no doubt it is going back to the Republicans, especially with Jim Justice, the popular incumbent Republican governor, running. He's crushing anyone there is to crush in the polls here in West Virginia. So right now there are 8 seats, all of which are held by Democratic incumbents, and the Democrats need to win every single one of these competitive races in order to maintain Senate control, and that's assuming President Biden wins his re-election bid. So this, of course, is why this is considered a bad map for the Democrats. But hey, enough talk. Let's get to predicting here. I'll start off with Maryland, a likely Democratic state. The only reason this state is even competitive, I mean, it's a super deep blue state that you saw Biden win by 33 points in 2020. But of course, popular Republican Governor Larry Hogan at the last second filed to join this race, and it is an open race as the incumbent Democratic senator is retiring. But that being said, as popular as Larry Hogan is statewide, is probably an even bigger name than Democratic nominee Angela Alsobrooks in the state by quite a bit. But this federally, it's just different than the state level when Hogan. I mean, the state was happy to elect Hogan when there was a Democratic-controlled Congress statewide to hold him in check. It's a lot different than sending Hogan to Washington here. Federally, the state is deeply blue, and you take a look at the polls right after Hogan declared for this race. You saw Hogan, he ended up, the day he declared, you saw him winning some polls big time, like by 12, 14, 8, but it has since tightened up. I mean, he was winning polls before the primaries in the state, but now that Alsobrooks has won the primary, you're seeing it's crashing back down to earth. Alsobrooks plus 10, plus 9 here. She'll win the race just simply based on the partisan lean of the state. So it's a likely Democratic state. Very likely that they'll win, but just not quite by 15, which is a threshold for safe. And similarly, neighboring state of Pennsylvania, I will consider likely Democratic. Now, the presidential level between Trump and Biden, this is a completely different story, a lot more competitive, but on the Senate level, Bob Casey has got this. He has consistently been a force in this state. Election after election, you saw him win by 13 in 2018. 2012, he won by 9. In 2006, when he was first elected, he unseated, I believe, an incumbent, right? Yeah, he unseated an incumbent by 17 points. Now, granted, I get 2006, 2012, and 2018 were all blue wave years, which helped propel Casey to win as much as he did, but still, the very worst he's ever done in the state was 9 points. He's consistently been popular, and he does not have a very strong Republican challenger in David McCormick. You look at the polls in Pennsylvania, Casey is consistently winning, and yes, some of them are by within 5 points, but overall, like, Casey is doing just fine. It's going to take a lot to unseat him. He's plus 8, plus 5, plus 7 across the board. So, again, I think Casey has a firm grip on the state, and the power of incumbency will definitely help him here. And then Wisconsin, I will consider likely Democratic as well. Tammy Baldwin, a popular Democratic incumbent of Wisconsin. She is known nationwide. She is the first ever openly gay United States Senator to be elected. And she won by 10 points in 2018. And again, this is a state, much like Pennsylvania, that on the presidential level, this is a completely different story. This state is absolutely in play for Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump. But on the Senate level, Tammy Baldwin is not looking to be in serious competition here. I don't believe she's being challenged by a currently elected official, at least not a big name. So Tammy Baldwin, she should be fine here. She's popular, doesn't have a strong challenger. She should win, maybe not quite by 10 points as she did in 2018, but 5, 6, 7, absolutely in play for Tammy Baldwin. Moving on, I'm going to call one more state like the Democratic, and this might be a little controversial, but I do think Ruben Gallego will win Arizona by over 5 points. Arizona is a state that has been rapidly shifting blue. Like, I'm almost putting it on the level of New Mexico federally. Just you look at how things have trended in the state. Yes, you had the well-respected John McCain of Arizona winning by 13 points in 2016 before he unfortunately passed away a few years later. And you saw Sinema, who's the incumbent of this seat right now, win by 2.3 in 2018 in the blue wave year. And of course, she's not running anymore. She switched her party to independent. Wouldn't really have a chance at winning. She was highly vulnerable in a Democratic primary anyway, with how much she has crossed over with her voting in the Senate. But then that's not really what I'm worried about. So yes, in 2018 it did go blue, but then 2020. Mark Kelly won the special election to fill McCain's seat by 2.3 points, which, okay, 2020 was a blue wave year. 2.3 points in a blue wave year is really not that impressive, especially over the Senator McSally, who was not that popular at the point. But then in 2022, that's what really raised an eyebrow for me. Mark Kelly went from just 2.3 points in the Blue Wave year of 2020 to 4.9, almost 5 points in the redder year of 2022. That is a dramatic shift in 2 years. And now, on that same ballot, you know who lost the governor's race? Kari Lake. And she's the one trying to win the Senate race federally right now. And yes, of course, it was a very close governor's race here. But this governorship did flip. That because Arizona is still sort of Republican leaning on the state level, but federally they have been doing nothing but voting blue since 2018. So I do believe that Ruben Gallego will win by at least 5 points. And to reinforce that, you look at the polls here in the general election, Gallego is consistently crushing Lake. Well, maybe crushing is a little bit too big of a word, but you got +8, +7, +13, +10, +5 across the board. He is winning by at least 5 points almost. So I do believe he will win by over 5. I really don't see this as very well in play for Kari Lake. So enough about Arizona. We got 4 states left, which are the 4 most in play for the Republicans. We'll start out in neighboring state of Nevada. I will consider that one a lean Democratic state. Jackie Rosen is popular in Nevada, and you saw her win by as many as 5 points in 2018, which is the most that any candidate on either party of any statewide race or federal election has won in quite a long time. And she unseated the incumbent doing so. And now, she does face Sam Brown in this state, the presumptive Republican nominee, and she is polling very well against Sam Brown. You got 14, 11, 13, 2, 14, 8. Like, Sam Brown has only come even to her one time as of late. So I do believe that Jackie Rosen will have no problem holding on. I could totally see it being within 5, and it's always close federally, but it always ends up going Democratic no matter how much the Republicans try, at least federally. Yes, I know Republican Joe Lombardo won there in 2022, but that's not a federal race. Like, Cortez Masto in 2022, she significantly outperformed polls to win here in Nevada. 0.7 points. Like, Blackstone was supposed to win this race by 3.5 points, and he was not a lightweight candidate in Nevada either, and Cortez Masto still held on. 2018, like I said, Rosen won by 5, the most any party has in a long time. Even in 2016, Cortez Masto won, and it was supposed to be a competitive race. Not even on the presidential level, Joe Biden has won here, Hillary Clinton has won here. This state just has not gone red federally in quite some time, and I don't see that changing in 2024 on the Senate level especially. So that leaves us with 3 states, and the next one I'm going to look at is Ohio. I'm going to consider that one lean Democratic. Now, this one is often compared with Montana Senate race, and understandably so. Montana and Ohio are 2 states that have soundly gone to Trump in both 2016 and 2020, but hold popular Democratic incumbents. But there is a difference between these 2 states that I honestly don't think is paid enough attention to. Like, you look back, yes, Trump soundly won both states both times, but look, you have Trump +16 and +20 in Nevada, or I should say +20 and +16, whereas in Ohio you have Trump +8 both times. So Montana is significantly further left federally than Ohio is. You still can consider Ohio a swing state to some capacity. It's not like it's going to Trump by double digits, or much less 15. So when you see both Sherrod Brown and Jon Tester significantly swinging polls here, I absolutely believe no problem that Sherrod Brown can surmount 8 points that Trump is winning by to win in this state. I mean, because, like, look at the polls here. You have Sherrod Brown has been doing just fine against Bernie Moreno, the Republican nominee. You got +11 over Moreno, +4 over Moreno, +6, +5, +2. So, and yes, like, you could argue, like, these +2s aren't that impressive and everything, but he has higher polls that are more impressive. But even so, you compare this to the presidential polls between Trump and Trump is they're night and day. You see, Trump is consistently doing just fine in the polls, and you see how much Sherrod Brown is swinging this. It's over double digits every single time to win these polls. So there is no doubt in my mind that Sherrod Brown can clear an 8-point threshold or a 9.6 point threshold right here to win in Ohio. I do believe Ohio is much more firmly in the Democrats' hands than Montana is. And now we'll get to Montana at the end here, but now we'll take a look at Michigan. This is a race that has not been talked about enough. It's the Democrats are focusing their energy more on Montana and Ohio, and even like Nevada and Arizona, than they are on Michigan. And this is a wide open race. The incumbent Democrat Debbie Stabenow, who is popular, she's retiring. And I made a video several months back about why I think this race will be more competitive than most think in 2024. And I mean, the polls here in Michigan for the Senate level are actually pretty close. We'll look at the general election here. You have Republican nominee Scott Rogers, or Mike Rogers, excuse me, not Scott Rogers, and Democrat Liza Slotkin, the Democratic one. And I mean, yes, Slotkin is consistently doing just fine against, well, I shouldn't say just fine, but she's consistently winning against Rogers in the polls, 4-2. 3. So yes, she is beating Rogers every time, but it's not like it's pretty. And this is a state that, unlike others, the Republicans have done well federally in outperforming polls. Like back in 2020, are you seriously gonna have 2020 data here? Or wait, I gotta go all. That's why. Like, Gary Peters was supposed to crush Republican John James. You look at this, like the worst he did was +5, I guess. But most of these, he was like double digits or close to it. But then when election time came in 2020 in Michigan, you saw Gary Peters barely won. Aside from this whole situation in Georgia here with the runoffs and everything, this was the closest race for the Democrats to hold on to, and no one really talked about it that much. And back in 2018, yes, Debbie Stabenow, the well-respected Democratic senator in the state, won by 6.5. But is that really that impressive? Neighboring state of Ohio, that's much more red than Michigan, voted for Sherrod Brown by more than Stabenow got in Michigan in 2018. 6.5 was really not that impressive considering a blue wave year. You saw Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and even Ohio vote further blue than Michigan did. And now, respected Debbie Stabenow's gone, and Mike Rogers is a candidate that can win. Ironically, he actually replaced Debbie Stabenow in the House way back in 2000, and now he's trying to replace her in the Senate here in 2024. So it calls for a very interesting race, and Michigan usually does very narrowly go Democratic, at least it has been recently since the Trump era has started, and I could definitely see a split ticket here, but I do consider it tilt Democratic. This one totally could go either way, but for now, because of the Democrats always prevailing in the state, I will consider it tilt Democratic, but this one can definitely change. So now we get to the tipping point of the Senate in Montana. Like I was saying, Jon Tester, much like Sherrod Brown, he does do a great job of swinging polls in this state, because on the presidential level, there is zero doubt in anybody's mind that Trump's going to win here in Montana in 2024. He's winning by, the very worst 15, which is the threshold for safe, but a lot of these polls, he's +20, 21. But then you look at the Senate level, and Jon Tester does a phenomenal job of swinging those polls. He is going up against Tim Sheehy, who the Republican Party is widely behind, both on the state level with Greg Gianforte and Representative Ryan Zinke. And then, on the federal GOP, you got Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell, a lot of Republican senators endorsing him, including Steve Daines, the other senator from Montana. So, Tim Sheehy, most recent poll against Tester, he wins by just 3, but that's still an incredible swing in favor of Tester. And Tester beats Sheehy by 2 here. So, it's definitely very close between the two. You have the one before the primaries, when Tester won by as many as 9, but now that the Republicans are behind Tim Sheehy, the polls have really tightened up. Not a lot of polling data in this state. We haven't got one since the end of March, and it's now June. but this is going to be very close either way. And I honestly, looking back at 2020 when this state was supposed to be in play for even Joe Biden on the presidential level, where it was, 4.4 was not a convincing lead for Trump at that point. Yes, he was winning, but it was supposed to be competitive for Biden. It did not. It was not competitive whatsoever. It was a 16-point swing. And you look at the Senate race in 2020, Bullock, the popular incumbent governor, Steve Bullock, who challenged Senator Daines here. This was a very close poll, but then Senator Daines here, he outperformed all of the polls here and ended up winning by 10 points in 2020 in Montana. And in addition to that, I know I'm shying away from the federal level here, but even on the governor's race in 2020, like Greg Gianforte against incumbent Lieutenant Governor Cooney, that was even a closely polled race, and Greg Gianforte won by, I believe, 13. So across the board in 2020, in 3 races, you saw the Republicans win by double digits. So I'm not so sure Montana has it in them to ticket split as much when there were 3 somewhat competitive races that all went red. So I will consider this a tilt Democratic state. Jon Tester absolutely can win, but I'm not sure he has a 20-plus point swinging him to make it happen. He was able to do 17 in 2012, but that was at a much less polarized time in American history. So I think Tim Sheehy will narrowly pull this one off and ultimately give the Republicans the Senate majority. So thank you guys for watching this video. If you skipped to the end, I totally get it. If you watched through all of this, I appreciate it. And to everyone that watched, please like, subscribe, comment down below. What do you like? Where did I go wrong here? I would love to know your thoughts. And yeah, that's all I got for today. This is Rust Belt Perspective, signing out.